Hey, my name is Jeff. Here are 5 ways you can get your pot off of the pottery wheel without dropping it. Spoiler alert, probably isn't these, but we'll talk about them.
Now, before we begin, all of these methods will benefit from a good undercut. They will also benefit from the paper method. The paper method keeps your pot round as you pick it up. All you have to do is cut a sheet of paper, lay it on top of the rim, either give it a little love tap or a spin and seal, and your pot will stay nice and round. If you're using a non-porous wear board like a tile, putting a piece of paper down also makes a huge difference when trying to get it off of the wear board later. Coming in at number 5, we have the pot lifters. Now, the reason they're number 5 is a lot of times they damage the bottom of your pot and they can get stuck underneath your pot after you put it on the wear board. So they can be kind of challenging. You can dip them in the water to keep them from sticking to your bottom of your pot, but it's probably better to just throw the pot with a little thicker bottom because they for sure will damage it. For number 4, we have the deep undercut and double peace sign method. It's great when you're working off the hump. Just give it a nice deep undercut, run the wire underneath it, and then hold your hands like two peace signs, and you can pick up the bottom really good. It works especially well for small bowls like this, little bottles, and other small things when you're throwing off the hump. I like this method a lot. Just make sure you get those deep undercuts. It makes it a lot easier to get your fingers underneath. Method 3 is the flood and float method, and it's amazing. You're going to flood your bat with a bunch of water and then run the wire underneath the pot until it floats on its own. Once it floats on its own, you're going to get a wear board, get the wear board wet, and you're going to float it right on there. It works amazing, especially if your pot is a little wider or if your pot has some texture on the outside. It's a great way to preserve those textures, and it just works. I recommend this way for beginners. A lot of potters float the pot onto their hand instead of a wear board, and it does work great. You might see it distort a little bit when you put it on the wear board, but usually they pop right back into round. Give it a try. The next method is the dry hands, dry pot method, and you can see here I'm scraping off all the slip off of the pot. That's why we call it the dry pot method. And then we're going to dry out our hands next. This method, the downside of this method, it works incredible for picking up pots, but if you have anything on the outside like throwing lines or anything, it doesn't work as well. Get that bottom cleaned off, scrape the water off your hands on the side of your bucket, and just get them dry enough where they don't have water on them. It's a little scary the first time. You just cup your hands around the pot and pick it up. You'll get used to it after a while. This is probably the fastest method. Coming in at number 1 are bats. If you value your time, if you want to have a good time throwing with minimal frustrations, if you throw porcelain, if you frequently throw larger, wider things like plates, bowls, platters, or want to learn how to throw plates, bowls, or platters, then bats are for you. Bats just work. You will not have to worry about your pot getting ruined coming off the wheel. Bats just fix all the problems. Your favorite vase won't slide out of your hands and hit the floor. Pots with textures won't get damaged. Floppy porcelain pots won't collapse. To top it off, many of us also come to the pottery studio to get away from the stress of our daily lives. Ruining multiple pots over and over again with pot lifters or dropped pots can take away from the stress relieving benefits of pottery. Everything has a trade-off, of course, and bats do have their downsides. Those downsides are bats take up a little bit more storage space, and they're another tool that you have to purchase, and they can be kind of expensive sometimes. Bat systems that use small square around bat inserts can solve the space issue. If you're serious about learning how to make pots and have the money, I highly suggest a small bat system with inserts and 1 or 2 full-size bats for making plates and large bowls. Here's a little bonus for sticking around to the end. I always loved watching those Hamada videos where Hamada would take some bamboo and use the bamboo to cradle the bottom of his pots while he picked them up. Bernard Leach wrote about this in his book, The Potter's Book. He wrote, 2 pieces of pliant bamboo or cane were used to add length to its hold. I don't have a bamboo tree, but I do have a palm tree, so I'm going to give it a little try with some palm fronds. I've never tried this before. Just clipped a palm frond, ripped it into, I'm going to give it a try, just like Hamada. Well, things were a little bit harder than they looked. always the way, isn't it? I did end up picking the bowl up, but I don't know that I would use this method again. I'm going to stick with bats, but I had fun trying this.
If you haven't already, flood and float the like button, subscribe, and I'm wishing you soft clay with no air bubbles. I'll see you on the next one.